excellence. Most guys had played in spurts, whether it was 30 minutes, 40 minutes. Every time he was on the court, he had a focus that was just second to none that I've seen.
Hey, Smitty, what's happening, man? One of the things we had, we teamed together in Miami for 3 years and had a couple of years we had playoff wars with the Bulls and Michael Jordan. And one of the differences in the two of them is that, Michael talked a lot. And Kobe just kind of gave you a look. It didn't really say much a lot of the times. And to me, that was a difference in them in terms of their demeanor on the floor. But one of the things that you hit on, the fundamentals, his footwork was impeccable. And it's something that he worked on prior to doing anything with a ball. He would take 5 or 10 minutes to just work on footwork at game speed without a ball, things that he was planning on doing in the game and what have you. And I think that that's what separated him, because there were a lot of guys that were athletic like Kobe was, but I think that that's what separated him was the fact that he was so fundamentally sound, and especially for a guy that didn't go to college where you get a lot of your fundamentals. But as a competitor against him, what's your fondest memories in terms of, and I know not all of them were good memories because you guys used to go at it, but in terms of just his physicality, that look that he gave you, that frustrated you the most when you had to play against him?
Hey, Brian, you said it best. Going up against Michael, you can kind of get into a conversation with Michael. Kobe, the conversation was still that look. That look of, okay, next play. And like you said, the part that I always said about Kobe, what made him, I think, separated from others was I don't think he needed athleticism to still be Kobe Bryant. And that's where you speak of his footwork and his fundamentals. There was things that he did even when you took away, I would say, his athleticism. That's where his fundamentals, his work ethic, that's where his footwork, that's where his skill set came. And I always say the most frustrating part was no matter how big I was at 6'8", having a few inches, no matter what, it just felt like I couldn't make a mistake on the defensive offensive end at all, at no times, playing against a Kobe Bryant. And I know you had the pleasure of playing against him and with him. I've been around a long time, and at that two-guard spot, I've never seen anything fundamentally to go along with the skill set, with the athleticism, with the relentless approach of winning. And then last but not least, you never could tell the injuries he had, whether it was fingers taped up, whether it's knees and back. He continued to play through them, and you always wanted to find an edge, and you couldn't find an edge.
Smitty, we were talking about this earlier today. Other than Michael Jordan, is anybody you can think of that has inspired more players that have come up through the ranks than Kobe Bryant did?
There's been some guys, Dan. Great question. I mean, for me, you go to Dr. J, and obviously some greatest in Kareem, but I think the three for me has been Dr. J, Michael Jordan. I also would throw Allen Iverson in there and Kobe Bryant. Though that group right there is just something about next level of where everybody, people that wasn't basketball fans, turned on and tuned in to watch those guys. And Kobe just, to me was just relentless with his approach of being great and excellence. And to me, to cap off his career, I remember sitting in the studio watching his last game, and I just knew it was going to be something special. And I said 50, and he ended up having 60 because that's just his mindset to go along with his skill set. You knew it would be something special that he would lead the game with.
Smitty, you've been all over the planet for the NBA and for USA Basketball as an ambassador and a representative of USA Basketball as well. I'm curious to get your take on his popularity, Kobe Bryant's popularity worldwide. in places like China and other places you've been, and just how pervasive his celebrity was.
Just processing this news. And I think in times like this is when, everyone unites. And so me personally being a part of the women's basketball community, this is just extremely personal for us as well. I know we talk a lot about his NBA credentials, but he was very much present at WNBA games, saw him at WNBA All-Star. I'm a member of the Los Angeles Sparks, and he's had a tremendous relationship with our organization, so much so that my head coach, Derek Fisher, always tells us stories about how to be a champion each and every day based on going up against Kobe in practice. I even remember we saw Kobe. Kobe called us into his private room with his daughters at the U.S. Women's National Team training competition that we were able to witness and attend, and he spent the entire halftime plus and then some, about like 30 minutes, talking to us about how to understand Coach Fisher and how to compete at the highest level. And it really helped us as players. He was always giving back. And to me, I think everyone feels it. Just being downtown, it's surreal to see how few people were there when the news broke and how quickly everyone has come together. And I mean, I even heard applause when they showed, his picture on the big screen, right, by Wolfgang Puck. Like, this is just, it's very difficult to process, but at the same time, I think everyone is leaning on each other, especially downtown here in Los Angeles.
Yeah, so many emotions right now, Shanae. Sadness, but also appreciation for what he represented to so many people in whatever regard that might be. Stand by, Shanae. I do want to have share a little more perspective here from President Barack Obama, the 44th President of the United States. He went to Twitter moments ago and shared the following, quote, "Kobe was a legend on the court and just getting started in what would have been just as meaningful a second act. To lose Gianna is even more heartbreaking to us as parents. Michelle and I send love and prayers to Vanessa and the entire Bryant family on an unthinkable day." And that is something that's also so hard for people to absorb, Shanae. I mean, we all experience death in our lives from a personal standpoint, friends, family, relatives, coworkers, what have you. But when young children die as well, and especially in this particular case, Gianna, who was 13 years old, she goes by Gigi, a budding basketball star in her own right in the junior level, and they were on their way to a game that Kobe was going to coach her in. And you mentioned the WNBA games, how many times he brought her courtside to see the Sparks play or to go and see the University of Oregon women's teams play. The influence that he was having on a young generation of basketball players of both genders, Shanae, and now you're going to have to absorb that tragedy of Gianna not being able to reach her potential in the sport.
Everyone is hurting, and this news came in waves. Obviously, first Kobe Bryant and then his daughter. And I don't even know if I should be saying this, but our team, our Sparks, were, thinking about potentially practicing this year at Mamba Academy. And that's how committed he is to finding role models that support, women's basketball for his daughter. He did it for the love of his children. It just, to me, is hard to process in general, especially when it comes to her too. When you think about the impact he's had on the game, it's not just what he did himself, but it's also, as you mentioned, for the future generations. Everyone in my generation tends to think that, LeBron/Kobe are the greatest of all time because he epitomized basketball dominance in the era in which we were born and raised. So especially for the women's basketball community, we understand this as well. I was even supposed to be 2 weeks ago invited to a private WNBA workout session with Kobe. I know there were a number of other WNBA players involved in that session. I believe Liz Cambage, Kayla McBride, about 10 or so players that came. And he didn't do this for the notoriety. He didn't do this, just to get attention, because a lot of times women's basketball players tend to fight for that, fight for our positioning. But he saw us, he respected us. And those are the things that he would do out of the love of the game, whether he was competing in his prime or afterward. He just cared. He cared, and I think it all stemmed from his daughter's love. And one of my favorite things that he said, a lot of people were saying, "Hey, don't you want a son?" And he said, "Why do I need a son? I've got a daughter that can carry on my legacy." So totally heartbroken, especially, for the future generation. We knew her to be the rising star, the one that would carry the torch, the one that would rep his name on the back of the jersey. We were excited for that, and it's just tough for that to be gone way too soon.
Sinead, you knew so much about Kobe from a fan perspective.